Okay, I'm back on another day. We're gonna try to finish up the Tic-Tac-Toe project and add a user interface to it. So the first thing is just to get some HTML that renders a Tic-Tac-Toe board. So I'm just gonna go into this code here. I have brought up CodePen, and I think it's make sure you can see this okay. Maybe get a little bit bigger font. Okay. I think maybe the easiest way to do this is with a table. Some people just don't like using tables. They think they're like not a modern format, but I don't know. I think they're okay. So a table is a two-dimensional grid, basically, and so we're going to make a 3x3 grid. Table is divided into rows, and then inside of those are the cells of the table. So I'm just going to put, let me just grab, I'm just going to make some table cells with X's and O's in them, and we'll see how that looks. So that closes the row. So that's one whole row in a table. And we can do 3 rows in a table. Ooh, that formatting doesn't look good. Let's see if I can get this to line up. Okay. Maybe I'll reverse the center one. Okay. X is an, that's not a 0, that's an X, or an O. Okay. If I save that, what's that? There's some X's and O's. So we can use styles to try to improve this the way this looks. So I'm just going to do an in-place style sheet here, and I'll just go ahead and style the table. And so anytime we see a table here, we're going to, first of all, let's change the font size to be 100 pixels. Let's see how that looks. Ooh, that's kind of big. No, we can't really see with that size. Let's see. That's the native size. Yeah, I wish I could do these side by side. I don't know. This editor doesn't really want to go. I found online that says this editor will go side by side, but I haven't found it. So let's just shrink that a little bit here. Just it's a little excessive. Let's try 64 pixels. Okay, that's good. Now I got ruler room to see things. Now we want to add kind of the boxes that are between here too, and also, you know, I think, yeah, and in terms of making a grid that's uniform looking, and we'll have to add some styles to that. So let's see. I think there is, I was just looking for styling of for grid lines. We want border collapse, and here's interesting table properties here. Let's go ahead and try that style. So border collapse, and 1 pixel solid. This is going to be red. I probably just want black. Let's see what that looks like. Well, that's a solid border around the whole thing. That's not what I want. Ah, I read the wrong thing. That is just the, yeah, that's not the TD inside of the table. So that I want to get rid of this one completely. Well, I'll get rid of this part. So we'll say for our TD cell itself, we're going to have the 1 pixel solid border. There we go. So that creates a box. But you know, that isn't really what we want. Can I? Yeah, okay. So I can say border left, and let's make this something like 3 pixels. And no, that's not that's not everything. Unfortunately, that is not what we want for the left-hand one. We don't want a border on all the way to the left of the table. We just want these two cells to have left-hand borders. So I think a way to fix that is with a CSS Selector or a class. So we can create a class for the cells that are on the right and the left and the middle and top and the center and the bottom, that sort of thing. And we could style each of those separately. That's a lot of typing. There's also some stuff in CSS selectors for things that are following. So by a selector, what am I talking about here? So when you create a style, the styles are the visual elements that apply to the elements of the HTML down below. So this says anytime you have a table element, I want to apply these styles, or any time I have a TD or a table data cell, I want to apply this style. Well, this selector can be there's a whole language for what this can be. This selector is the most simple selector. It just gives an element name. So let's look up CSS Selector after. And I'm not sure this is going to be the best way to do this, because we are going to have the top and bottom issues too. So maybe we should just solve this as in kind of a brute force way. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add classes to this. So I'm going to say the class here is top left, top space left. So it has two classes. Here the class. So basically you can kind of like name, call this middle. Class equals top right. Okay, so let's try that, and we're gonna try to use those. Suppose we only want this TD to apply to cells that are middle, and I guess it's TD, not middle, I think it is, and then a TD cell that is right. There we go. So this, if the selector, either of these two selectors is true, then it'll apply that bordering. See, we had named both of those that way. So I'm just going to go copy this line, and we'll replace our others with that, and then we'll edit them so that they have all the different portions. So this is going to, oh, you know what, I think the word center here is better instead of middle, because we have to have a name for things vertically at the center and horizontally. So this is going to be horizontal center, and then this is going to be middle left, middle center, middle right. Maybe there's a more elegant way of doing this, and these are going to be the bottom versions of all of those. Yeah, so I renamed some stuff. Let's see, in our classes, I was using the term middle, or center instead of middle. So let's fix that. It's center. There we go. So that does our borders on the left side of those cells that are not the leftmost cells. And here we can get the middle row and the bottom row. Or actually, I could do it the other way, but, well, let's just do it that way. the middle row and the bottom row to have border top. There we go. So now we have our grid. Now the table cells there. Let's see what happens if I remove a X from that. Yeah, that's fine. So we're going to basically be putting something in here, and I think the one thing it would be nice to do is to set the size of the grid cells so that our text can just float inside of there. You know, if I change the font size, the whole grid is going to change. Like if I change this to 12 pixels, the whole thing is really tiny. Well, maybe that's okay. Let's just leave it like that. So you just set the font size, and it makes the grid be the right size. And I think even if it's the only thing I was wondering is if all 3 cells in a row are blank. Yeah, that's what happens. Now the other thing you can do is put this NBSP space. Whoa! What did I do? I think there. And oh, I got an overstrike mode. How did I get that way? Okay. Yeah. So unfortunately, see how the column width is proportion. It makes room for the thing inside of it, which in our case, it's going to make the grid change around. So I think we're going to have to set a fixed width for our table cells as well. So let's go ahead and say that let's make the width 80 pixels, and we'll say let's center then the contents of that. So sorry, I'm going to be doing a lot of looking up of things because I'm really rusty on CSS. I want to center text, which is, I think it's text align. Yeah. So let's see, text align center. There we go. Okay, so now we have, it's always 80 pixels. It doesn't have to have anything in that square. It's the right size, and if I add text in there, it doesn't change the grid. Okay, great. All right, so this is our this looks like our good board. So let's go ahead and we are going to now move over to Visual Studio. I was just playing around in CodePen as a way to prototype this, and we'll see how to actually hook that up to our game engine. Okay, so I've just copied the style sheet, just like I had in CodePen, over to our index.html file, and here we have our board here, sample board, and then the table is just inside there. I think maybe this tic-tac-toe element is looking pretty pretty small. Maybe we should add a style for H1 font size 100 pixels. Well, maybe that's a little bit much. Let's go back to 80 pixels. Okay, great. So there's our tic-tac-toe game. And also I will do margin left 20 pixels, 40 pixels, just kind of move it off to the side a little bit. Okay, so when we resize this page, everything's kind of left aligned, but that's not jammed up against the edge of the screen. So that looks good. All right, so now we have to hook this up to our code, and there are 2 things we want to do. One is to display display the current board here, and I think the other thing we need to be able to click on elements. So to do that, we're going to have to have references for the HTML inside of our JavaScript and to be able to hook those up. So let's go over to the JavaScript code here, and you know what, I think maybe we can create another JavaScript file, which is, since this JavaScript file really doesn't know anything about HTML and it doesn't need to, we can go ahead and create another Tic-Tac-Toe file, a JavaScript file just for the UI, Tic-Tac-Toe UI.js. So now we're going to have to include that in our script up here. So we're going to have two JavaScript files being loaded. One is empty right now, and let's do a little bit of let's open up see if I can get DevTools in here, see if you can see it at all. Document.query. Remember I talked about the query selector. Oh, I think all. What if I look for all the TD cells here? And see, we get an array of 9 elements, and you can see all of the TD elements that we have here returned as an array. If I did query selector instead of selector all, it just gives me the very first match, which would be the top left one. So we want to do document query selector all, and we'll get an array of all of the cells that are in there, and then we can use that to change the text, and I'll show you how that would work. So first of all, let's create a variable, which is, and I'm just doing this in the DevTools debugger, just to kind of play around with it. So let's say we're going to create something called cell equals, or cells. I'll call cells equals document query selector all. Okay, so cells is now this list. So cells of 0. Oh, look at that! It shows me where that is in my grid here, and I can say text content equals X. Oh, look at that! There we go. And then, or I could say is O. And so that is how I can actually set the value of a particular cell. So if I want to display the board, I just need to update all of the X's and O's for what's on the screen from an array of values that we had created for the Tic-Tac-Toe board. So let's go ahead and do that. So we can say function display display board. Well, you know what, why don't I just I'm gonna just create a global variable. That's generally not a great idea. We're gonna need some global variables somewhere. Sure. So let's just say we're gonna right at the if we want to create an array that already says when we need to find the time in which we will create this connection to our HTML page. If I were to do this, cells equals what I had before here, document. So the document object is a global variable that refers to the entire document, the HTML document that we're working in right now. So if I were to do this, and then we run our code, and then I type in the value of cells, you see it's an empty list. And the reason it is because that script was running before all of the document was loaded. So what we want to do is to run our code after the whole document is loaded. So so one way of doing this is with the window onload function. So let's do this. So when the window loads, we can call a function. And let's not get fancy here. I'm just going to say function unloaded. We're going to create a function with that name, and we're still going to have a global variable. Okay, so now we have this global variable. We refresh this. Did I say that? Oh, window unload is not a function. Window. Oh, I'm sorry. Unload is a. It's a property of the window object. There we go. If I wanted to see, and I can go type into the let's go ahead and set a breakpoint here. If I refresh the screen, here we go, and I'm in the debugger now. So you can see that we are being called with we're being called from the window object because it's finished loading the window, and the cells are here. These cells already exist, and we can see what their properties are, and but when our function is called document query selector all will return the table because it already exists inside of that. So now we set this global variable cells, which now has our list in it. All right, so great. So now we have a global of cells. So now we can say display. We'll do another function, display board, and it's going to take in a board that we've defined before, which was like an array of values in it. And we're basically just going to copy the state out of one into the other. So it's the 9. So we're going to copy from our board into the cells on the screen. And they're really just one-to-one lined up, 0 through 8. So index. So we're going to say cells sub I dot text text content, I think it was. Text content equals well, actually let's first of all decide what we want to put in there. We want to put an X and O for the given board position. We want to put an X or an O or a space maybe if it's nothing. So if board of I equals -1, then we're going to say our we'll say the default things is let the value equals just a space. Let's say by default we're just going to put a space there. But if the board is a -1, then we're going to put the letter O in there. Else, if the board equals 1, oops, we're going to put an X in there. And otherwise it's a space. So then we're going to put value in there. Okay. Let me turn off that breakpoint. So let's try display board and pass in all zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It worked. Although we have another bug where our style sheet doesn't set we don't set a table height. So let's say height is also 80 pixels. Okay, and let's try that same display board. Boom. Okay, great. So now we have grid scales that are always 80 pixels square, and we're going to put a 64 pixel font X or O in it. And let's try putting a 1 in there. There's a 1. Let's try putting a -1 in one of the cells. There we go. So now we can display a board. So now what we want to do is have a couple of buttons for starting a game and also clicking on these cells so that they actually do something. So we need to do something that's called creating a click handler for the board for each of those cells. So what we want to happen is whenever we click on one of those cells, we want to call a function that knows which cell we're clicking on and can do something appropriate to that. So the first thing we have to do is set up a click handler for that. So I'll write a function called onClick cell, and it's going to take integers from 0 to 8. And for now, let's just console.log saying number I got clicked. And so that's all that will do. Now, to call that function, we need to set up a click handler for each of the cells. So let's again loop through all these cells. We're going to do cells of I. Okay, and now we want to set this up to, we can say onClick. OnClick is a, oh, I'm sorry, and it's all lowercase in HTML. OnClick, which is going to be a function. So we really want a function that actually passes in a unique index into our callback. So what we're going to do is actually use what's called an arrow function, and this is basically like a one-off function that we're creating right here on the fly, where this will create 9 individual functions, and each one will be calling onClick cell with a different index in it, and I'm able to use the variable I inside of this function that I've created, and it will refer to that same function, I think. So, but I might be wrong. So here we go. If I call onClick cell of 3, you'll see it says number 3 got clicked. But if I hover over this and then click on each of these cells, it also gets clicked. Now notice our cursor is still this it's like a text selection cursor, which isn't really what we want. So but there's a way to indicate that you can click on these cells. There's a better way to specify that in the CSS. And so I can say when you're in a table cell, there's a cursor property which is I think hand is the right one to be using. There we go. So now we got a little hand cursor right over each cell. So and then that shows that I can kind of click on that. So there we go, 0, through 8. So the thing I was unsure about was there's a little bit of a trickiness going on with this callback. And let me just talk about arrow functions really quick. Functions are themselves can be assigned to variables in JavaScript. So let's say I can say x. Let's see, maybe I increase the font size here. So x is a function that is going to return 1. So that's kind of like the whole function written in one line here. So if I use x as a function and call it, it returns 1. So, and if I say, just type x, it says x is a function, and x is a function, and there's the definition of the function. So this part is the parameter list, and this part is the body of the function. I could have another function. I could change that function so that it takes a variable and returns 1 plus that variable. Oops. Yeah, I forgot the arrow. So it's the equal sign greater than sign. There we go. So now that function is now something that takes a parameter. So if I pass in a parameter, it'll return 1 plus that. If I call the function without passing in a variable, it'll send an undefined value into for the letter a, for the variable a here, and the function then will return an arrow. This is not a number error code. So that's how you create arrow functions. And when you create a function like that, it has a scope or a context, so that all the variables that are defined within the scope of that function are kind of frozen or bound at that time. And so I'm not going to get into exactly about the issue about closures and binding variables to anonymous functions, which is something that you will have to learn about JavaScript. But for now, this recipe works, and it'll call onClick cell with a new value, a different index for every time it gets clicked. Okay, so now that we have that, we can have our onClick cell actually do something like set a value in a board, and then display the board. So let's create a board. Well, actually, why don't we? Yeah, we'll have a board. Now we have this function onLoaded that's doing a bunch of things to initialize our state. So let's set at the very beginning, let's set our board to all empty. 0. There's 9 of those. And when we click on a cell, we can, let's just put a, let's say whose turn it is. Let's say the side is going to start out as X. And we'll have another variable here, side. So whenever we click a cell, let's just say we'll put the side in that board position. So board is side. Side equals minus side to switch. Now we're going to change sides to be the next position, and we'll display the board. There we go. So let's try that. Refresh the screen. The very first thing we might want to do at the beginning here is also display the board. Now that we've initialized it to nothing. So I have an error at line 31. Didn't pass in a variable. Board. Display board. I have to always call the board in. Okay, great. Look at that. We ended up with a fresh board. So every time I refresh this page, it clears out whatever was in it. So regardless of, I don't know if you can see if maybe a flash, it so happens so fast you don't even get to see it. If I set a breakpoint at here, right before we could call the display board, and then refresh, you can see that the initial position of the board, which we had in our raw HTML, is this this pattern that we had here before. But then as soon as we call display board, it zeroes it out. So we can take out, now that we have that, we can take out these random X's and O's that we had in our HTML page. Those are not needed anymore. Those are just to see what it would look like. So it's going to start off with all of these things being empty. There we go. Save that. There, it's empty to begin with, but then we go ahead and display it anyway as an empty board. Or I guess if it starts out empty, we don't actually have to do this display board. So we can just take that out, and we'll just start out with the empty board, and then we end up being able to play a game. Well, just flipping ones. Now the way it's written, it just switches between X's and O's. Oh, here's another problem. Just a little HTML problem. Notice that if I hold the mouse down and move, we start selecting. We don't want to be able to. That's kind of a weird user interface. We don't really want that to happen, so I can turn that off. User select. None? Oh, I'm not sure if that's right or not. There we go. Yeah, that seems to fix it. Now just my clicks and nothing else. There's no attempt to select it. I think that works. But now we need some better logic about what click means. So, and we're getting close to hooking it up to our real game. So let's refresh and we'll start over again. So what do we really want the clicking of a cell to mean? I think first we want to check to make sure that there is nothing in that cell already, because right now we are just putting something in it regardless. So if that position is not equal 0, so if it's not equal 0, we're just going to return and do nothing at all. So a click will just be, it'll just be ignored. And then the next, so no clicks are actually going to do anything in a cell that is already filled. If I refresh that, yeah, okay, so that looks good. Well, now we actually kind of want to maybe hook it up to playing the game and finding the best possible other move instead of having just the human player do all the clicking and moving. We'll have the computer respond to the next move if the game is not already over. So let's go back to our Tic-Tac-Toe API that we had here. We had find best move, we had is full board, we had has one. So let's say, and I think we said find best move would always, it will return a position and a side. And so if the position is undefined, it won't make a move at all. But if it returns something here, that it did make a move. So we could just use the find best move function, try to find the best move for a computer to play. If it has one, play it, and then switch sides again. So we're going to need to keep track of like which side the computer is playing. Well, actually, no, we don't even have to do that. We can just go in the UI. If you're able to click a cell, then it's your turn. So So the first step would be to let you make the move that you want to. And then we're going to do find, well, we'll just call this best move is find best move, and we pass in a board and the side that is moving now. So it's that turn to go. And if the best move of, I think we said position is not equals undefined, then we're going to actually make the move. So here we will do very similar to what we did above. We're going to say board of best move. Is it pause? Is equal to side, and then side equals minus side, because it's now the humans, presumably the humans' turn to move. Oh, and now, and we will, before we finish, we'll display the board as it now exists. Oh, yeah. I think that's right. So we return the position and the side. Position. Okay, let's try that. Oh my gosh. So I clicked X and immediately this board position got picked by the computer. What if I pick that? Oh, he blocked me. Very clever. Oh, blocked me again. Oh, blocked me. So I think I was just playing wrong. I didn't notice that it had won already. Let's try playing a few games. If I move in the center, that's good. If I move there, it has to move there. If I move here, it has to move there. Now I have to move here, but there's no logic that preventing the human player from making a wrong move. Well, that's fine, and it gets three in a row, and it's 1, but it lets me win. It lets me take another turn, which it shouldn't. So let's detect whether the game is over or if the player has won. So when we click the cell, first you have to detect if is the game over. So let's see. You know, that might be. There are two ways it can be over. The board could be full, or the we decided that actually. When we find the best move, we decided if it was undefined, we were not. Oh, but that was before. So now we have a brand new click, and we're trying to decide whether the game is over or not. So I think it's going to be a combination of is board full and has won. So I would say here is if is board full or has won is not equal to 0, then let's just console.log game is over. Game is over. Stop playing. And then we'll return. Great. And we could also console.log this error case. Cell already taken. So we get like some debugging output. So we click here. Oops. Is board full? Oh, is full. Sorry, not is board full. Is full. And if I click on that, it says, oh, game's over, stop playing. Huh. So I think we only have a few things left to do here that would be useful. One is to reset the game from a button to reset the game from the beginning, a button to have the computer go first instead of the human go first, and then a button to have to display who won when the game is over. So why don't we do the reset first. So we're going to add to our HTML, we're going to have a button that always says something like new game or something like that, or restart game. So to do that, we create a button. And yeah, restart game. There it is. And we can style that so it looks a little bit better. Okay, I was just futzing around with the styling. There's a bunch of fancy stuff like Flexbox and things like that, which is probably beyond the scope of what we're talking about today. So I just created, I set the body to text align center. Oh, excuse me. And then the table I set to margin 0, auto, and I can show you like what the different styles will do with that. Let's see, the table style. No. The table style. Here we go. Actually, is that? Yeah. So if I turn off that margin auto means it'll try to kind of take whatever equal margin is on both sides. So the 0 there means the top and bottom margin around the board, and then the auto means the left and right. So it's like top, bottom, left, right. If you only have two values there for margin. The button, let's see if we have the button over here. Let's see if I can find that element here. The button I have set to font size 24, just increase it a little bit, and the margin, I add a 20 pixel margin on top and bottom, and then again auto, so it's left and right justified. So now the page, everything's centered in the page. It wraps funny, but if your page is wide enough, it looks okay. All right, so restart game. So we have a button here, but it's not hooked up to anything. So one thing we can do that is easy here, you can say onClick equals, and we'll just say restart game. We'll call that function. And we go to the UI, we can add that function. Restart game. And what we're going to do is actually this stuff, the stuff that's when you first load the board. So let's copy that here, or I'm going to cut this out of this, put it in here. And we do want to display the board again. And when we'll also restart the game at the beginning of onloaded too. So we restart this, and we start making moves, and then we click restart game, and it starts over again, just as if we had refreshed, and everything gets started over from the beginning. Okay, great. So, that's it. Now let's add something that, what did we say? We want to say have the computer go first. So, should I just put that in another button underneath there? Then we kind of want to hide it if once a game is in progress. So let's go back to our HTML. We're going to add another button. OnClick was computer first. I'll say computer first. Computer goes first. Oops, we need to put a line break between these two things. We can do this kind of break element. Otherwise, it just kind of flows on like it was text. Okay. And also that table. Let's just increase a little bit of. Ooh. A little bit of space. Oh, what did I just do? Okay. There we go. There we go. Just a little bit of space there. Computer goes first. Okay, it doesn't do anything because we don't have a computer first function. We'll go create that. Function computer first. Well, we kind of want to be sure that well, we'll hide this button if the game is in progress. We plan on doing that. And but so if the button gets clicked, it's as if we could call onClick cell and of a whatever number that the computer wants to do. Or actually, we want to do the same code here as this find best move. So let's just copy that over here. So we're going to say find best move board and side. So the computer will be the side at this point. You know, why don't we just change the button to computer moves, and we'll just have the computer make a move without us clicking. That'll actually be a nicer function. So instead of computer moves, we don't have to turn off the button. Computer moves, and then, oh, we're going to call that function computer moves. And we go back to the UI, and this is computer moves. So it'll choose the best move. If it actually did the move, it'll update it and do the side. So, and that's exactly what happens here. So since we're going to just do computer moves here automatically whenever the human player moves, we'll just let it do that. Let's see how that goes. So first of all, let's check our old behavior. Oops, this working? Yep, looks good. If I say computer moves, it'll move the X. So it'll choose whichever best move is there, and then if there's nothing to move, it doesn't do anything. Restart the game. Computer moves. You just have the computer play itself. Or you can start off and play a couple moves, and then you can say, computer, will you help me out? Okay, great. The only thing now we're missing just whether one side is 1 or not. So what I would do is have we'll just have some text here on the bottom, and we'll just create a div with a class equal to I don't know, announce. How about that? So this will display some sort of announcement in here. It'll be like computer wins. There we go. Well, it's not very big. Let's improve that a little bit, and we'll go up to we'll say the div announce should have a font size of 80 pixels. There we go. That's pretty dramatic. Computer wins. And we will not have any sort of announcement to begin with. let's go back to our UI. Remember when we initialized things, we got the cells? Well, we're going to want to get an announcement from the document. So say announce equals document query. We only expect one selector of dot, or let's say div dot announce. That is our announcement, the div for the announcement, and then we can set the text in there. When we restart the game, we're going to say announce dot text content equals the empty string. So start off, and that thing is empty, so it's not even displayed in there. But if I said announce dot text content equals hi, there it is. So we have a message in there. And what we're going to do then when, let's see, when the game actually finishes, let's just have a function that says checkboard. That'll be the most clear way of doing it. Or check game. All right, so to check the game, we're going to do something very similar to this. If the board is full, actually we're going to have different cases. If somebody has one, let's say, ooh, what did I just do? So we're going to say winner equals has one of board. If winner is not equal to 0, okay, then we're going to announce a winner. And so, well, what is the winning text going to be? Let t equal, and say if and we're going to say announce dot text content equals, and we can have one of those strings. We'll say side is the winner, or side wins, like that. But we're going to say side equals. Now, if the winner, this is a way of specifying one of two values. If the winner is 1, then we are going to say we want to make that an X. Otherwise, we're going to make it a O. I think this is called the tertiary operator. It's just so it's like if this condition is true, return this value. If this condition is false, return this value. So so that we're going to say that is the winner, and we'll just say winner. Winner. Oh no, not winner. Sorry. I'm going to call it the mark. The mark equals, if the winner is 1, then it's an X, and otherwise it is a X or O. So if the other case was it is full, if is full, then we're going to say announce text content equals draw. And that's it. So then when we call check game, then it'll either set it to whoever wins or whoever draws, but it doesn't, yeah. And otherwise it won't change anything. So, and when we restart the game, we set it to nothing. So that should work. So when do we have to call the check game? After the computer moves. I think that's it. Okay, I had a mistake in that code. What it should say is if winner is equal to the number 1, I had it testing for the string 1, then X will be the winner, will be the mark we need to make, and O is otherwise. So then this is right. And I forgot to put this return statement here, so if we fell through and also said that the board was full, we'd say it was a draw. We shouldn't do that. So I need to return here and then announce it's a draw. And let's see if I go ahead and try playing a game. Let's test that out. We'll do this. O wins. Great. I could have the computer move. Oh, X wins. Yep, that's correct. There we go. And I can get a draw position if I'm not too stupid. Draw. Okay, those are the 3 cases. Okay, so that's it. I think that's about it for this example, and that'll be the end of part 2. Okay, and I think they were done with this program. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you later.